Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by Kyle Dvorchak and Denny Carter for our Week 15 preview show. It's our first full house in a really, really long time in terms of all 32 teams being active. All 32 teams were active for Thanksgiving week. That was almost a separate slate. So 3 games on the Thursday and 1 on the Friday. We are getting a ton of weekend football. Of course, this being the NFL, of course, it's not all on Sunday. No, there are still 3 games on Saturday. So now we have to staff Saturday as if it's a game day, and it's just real great. And take people behind the curtain a little bit. I'm not mad about it.
No, none of us are mad. I would say
Denny. I take it none of you. None of you are mad about Bill Belichick probably being fired. It sounds like in my opinion, my exact quote to you, Denny, was being bad once, and Bill Belichick. You took umbrage with that. You said
I did
for years, forever.
A lot of umbrage. Listen, Bill Belichick has never been good outside of the Brady years, and that was a nice run. That was a nice little run.
Yeah, outside of those unending 44 Brady years, he's never been good.
77% winning percentage with Tom Brady.
Oh, that's good. Does it hold up, Denny? Does it hold up in any other circumstance?
Let me look into it. I just did the math, Kyle. 45% winning percentage. He's won 45% of his games without Brady.
That's still 45. 6th best in NFL history. You have to remember there's never been any good coaches in the history of the
league. Listen. He beyond like getting into whether he's lost his fastball, which yes, he has. The game has passed him by, which obviously yes, it has.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little hard to say the game's passed him by when every week they're allowing like 8 points. They don't have a quarterback. They messed up their biggest post-Brady decision. And sure, they could have, quote, hired a real offensive coordinator last year.
Yes,
and
right.
Things like that. But
right. I mean, they tried to correct it by bringing in Bill O'Brien. That has not exactly worked. I mean, this receiving room is the worst in the NFL by far. So the team building wise, it's a disaster. I think that Bob Kraft had every right to fire Belichick in mid-season during the season. It's that bad.
There has to be some loyalty in sports. And instead of letting Kyle talk, I'm just going to make a quick point real quick where my genuine opinion for what happened to Belichick is I do think he's one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, but that the only bad part about him having Brady was that it did allow him to become lazy is not the right word, but too stubborn, too set in his ways. Where you have his number one contemporary, Nick Saban, with the nature of college football, the roster turning over Nick Saban had no choice but to evolve or die or adapt to every new circumstance, where Bill Belichick just did not have to do that. And his habits just calcified, and he has not changed them quickly enough. And I don't think it is that he was never good. It's that Tom Brady allowed him to always be Bill.
I think the dealer called up and said, "Hey, we've got the case in the whatever has got 100,000 in it." Denny, I think we take this because Pat fully capitulated on him being a dust ball at this point. That feels like a relative win. I'm going to take that. I don't know about you, Denny, but I'm taking the deal.
I'll take it. Obviously, look, there's no way that I can present a real argument for Belichick just being really bad
because it doesn't exist
throughout his career. I mean, he clearly knows his stuff about defense, right? I mean, the Patriots defense is elite right now. They're not allowing if they had a halfway functional offense, they'd be a playoff team. Unfortunately, they don't.
Yeah, that's we're all looking for the guy who did this situation, which is why he's the dust ball now.
You do almost have to try to draft receivers as poorly. You almost literally have to try.
That's right. Also, there's this thing. I don't know if you guys saw this, but after the game last week where Bailey Zappi led the team to victory, he comes up to Belichick and gives him a handshake like he's a father-in-law who was in the military for his whole life and doesn't want this kid to marry.
And you are meeting him for the first time.
Yeah, that's not good.
We know Bailey's vibes were high though, because he was celebrating with other dudes as he came into the locker room.
Bill O'Brien.
And then as soon as his eyes connect to Belichick, he's like, "Oh my God, it's business. Please don't cut me." Because he literally has been cut this season, right? He got cut at the beginning of the season.
Zappi actually waved at Belichick at first and then thought better of it. It was like, I should go shake the man's hand. Mm-hmm. And Bailey Zappi handled it perfectly, as well as anybody could, right? But the fact that he's that distant and that detached from the team, I think speaks volumes about not only him as a coach, but him as a person.
He did the handshake got him an honorable discharge, at least, instead of a dishonorable discharge from the Belichick Miller, because he was immediately cut for not being sober enough after the victory. We must move on to previewing the Week 15 slate. We begin with the stubborn Denver Broncos and the reeling Detroit Lions meeting up in Michigan, with the Lions acting as 5-point home favorites. Denny Carter. We know the Lions are better at home. Yeah. They haven't really been good anywhere of late. Is there any chance of Jared Goff getting on track against the Broncos, who've really, really been playing excellent defense for months now? And is this profile more as a David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs game?
Yeah, I don't see any way if this game turns into a game where they have to lean on Goff and lean on the passing game as they have done in recent weeks, then it's over. Like I don't. That's not going to work. This Broncos defense, them and the Vikings are neck and neck for the best defense in the league over the past 8 weeks, so 2 months now. Okay, this is a horrible spot for Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown in this passing game. It profiles. I mean, look, every Detroit game right now profiles as a David Montgomery game because they head into every game as a favorite. Do I think that they're going to win this game? Absolutely not. Like the Broncos are winning this game. And
hold on. So you've said that neither the Dolphins nor the Lions are going to win another game. Is basically what I've taken from you this week, by the way.
Well, the Dolphins are definitely not winning another game.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. We actually can't get sidetracked.
I don't know about the Lions, but okay. So let me just read you about Montgomery real quick. The Denver defense can be had on the ground since week 9. Denver's allowing the second highest yards before contact per rush. Okay, that's a really good stat as far as like big runs go. Montgomery, this is a Montgomery game script. Like I mentioned, he's averaging 17.5 carries per game in Lions wins. So if you project them to win, then he should see plenty of volume. I just don't see that in the cards for the Lions.
Yeah, I do think that the Lions backs will get home, and I have both ranked terrifyingly high. I do think I think the Broncos will probably win, but I think it's to stay close enough for both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to have their will imposed. Do you have an opinion on this, Kyle? And Gibbs and Montgomery. I ranked Montgomery very, very high this week. That's all I'll say. Very, 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 very high.
Yeah, I've been doing the supporting Russ shtick for a few weeks, but like he's not good. Like he's definitely not good. He's got good numbers. Like he's doing good rushing numbers for his like recent kind of. He's getting older, so their rushing numbers are down. Touchdown rate is top 5. Like, dude, watch tape, brother. He's not that good.
No,
so I'm gonna take the Lions rebounding here. I do think though something that sort of Denny pointed out is their recent struggles. Like it's everything to do, or it's at least the recent struggles are the exact reason Amon-Ra St. Brown's slump has been happening. It's simply that, as Denny pointed out, every game is a Dave Montgomery game because all this team wants to do is run the football. Since week 10, they have a minus 10% pass rate over expected. It's only minus 2% for the first 10 weeks of the season. They were a pretty balanced team to start the year. I mean, for 2 months or more. And since they've basically gotten both of their running backs back, they are just pounding the rock. So the volume is down. But then Jared Goff has been playing worse lately. So there's less volume, way less efficiency. And Amon-Ra still kind of gotten there with, I think, 2 touchdowns over the past 4 weeks. But he has no 100-yard games in the past 4 weeks. If Goff doesn't turn around, or if the Lions don't pass more, we know they don't want to do that. We're probably stuck at like the wide receiver 1-2 border for Amon-Ra.
I think I have him ranked as the wide receiver 10. So right there in those borderlands. And so we hinted at a lot of this already, Denny, but are we streaming Russell Wilson this week? Do we have Russell Wilson ranked ahead of Jared Goff? I agree with Kyle. There's not much juice left to squeeze out of the Russell Wilson orange. I do have him ranked ever so slightly ahead of Jared Goff this week because I think it was Josh Norris, Rich Rebar via Josh Norris tweeted the Lions haven't allowed like a QB1 since like week 6 or something.
Yeah.
And the Lions are hemorrhaging passing game production. Are we streaming Russell Wilson this week? Even though, as Kyle confirmed, he is not good.
No, he's not. But by the way, you meant the Broncos haven't allowed a QB1 since.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me.
Yes.
The Lions allow the QB1 performance every week.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, yeah, I think you could throw Russ in there, hope for some rushing. I mean, he's still taking the shots. Like it's all or nothing with Russ right now. I mean, he is going downfield a good amount. Man, Cortland Sutton is getting away with it in ways that are driving me insane.
He's not getting away with it. He's just an old-fashioned actual NFL boundary threat.
That's fair. Put some respect on his name, Denny.
Here to catch some cutters. I don't know what your job is. My job is to score touchdowns.
I mean, but literally, like every single green zone target he gets is a touchdown. So
I think he's played like 13 games, has nine games with a touchdown. Like he's scoring at a 75% clip on a
He's their goal line running back. That's why Javonte Williams is worthless.
right.
But somehow the goal line also extends to 40-yard attempts. He is getting away with it, but it's because he's good. He's a baller.
He is good. He is good. You know who's not good? Jerry Jeudy.
Who?
Not good.
Oh, no.
By the way, I just acquired him for a 3rd-round pick in our Dynasty League.
Oh, that's a steal, though. He might not be good, but that's a steal.
It actually is a steal, to be honest, because when he signs with the Chiefs next year, they have a long history of turning around underperforming, frustrating
they
receivers.
Love doing that. Yeah.
You're locking him in for 700 yards, 3 scores, and a Week 17 benching.
I am. It's already money in the bank. Speaking of money in the bank, we needed more of it, so we have to read a promo. We'll be right back.
You nailed it,
after this.
That's good.
This holiday season, get the fantasy fan in your life, the exclusive Rotoworld Draft Guide bundle featuring expert analytics, player insights, and season-long tools. Get all 3 of the draft guides for one low price. Go to NBCSports.com/holiday bundle and use the promo code HOLIDAY23 at checkout to receive 25% off and a $10 Fanatics gift card. Yeah, they said the segue couldn't be done, but then it was.
But you did it.
I did.
I'm proud of you.
Sort of. The backup starting Vikings. Oh man, what did I write here? The Vikings and Bengals. Both have backup quarterbacks, and they're meeting up in Cincinnati with a total right around 40. And the Bengals getting 3 points at home right there on the Ohio River, Kyle. Jake Browning has been one of the season's biggest surprises over the past 2 weeks, but I would have to assume the party comes to a screeching halt versus Brian Flores. Is this correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably true on top of the fact that the Vikings really had like 1 or 2 soft weeks to start the year. Since week 4, I believe it is, they are the #1 defense in EPA per play allowed. They've been a complete 180, really, I want to say since the start of the season, but functionally, that's probably a product of small sample size. When you give them the course of the season, they start looking better and better to the point where one of the best defenses in the league right now. And Jake Browning, for as good as he has played, has really gotten away with it in terms of getting a ton of yards off yak. Just shy of 2/3 of his yards have come off yards after the catch. He had like nearly 150 yards after the catch on like 3 pass attempts to running backs last week alone. I think, some yards after the catch are absolutely earned, and like touchdowns after the catch are earned in that more accurate passes generate yak better than less accurate passes.
It's a good thing when Brock Purdy does it.
So, some credit is due on the yards after the catch. 2/3 feels like a very optimistic projection going forward. So we're probably due for some regression there. He gets a really difficult matchup, and he's been rushing for touchdowns too, and that's just not going to sustain. He's got, I think, back-to-back rushing touchdowns. It's probably a spot where all the regression hits, plus the defense, where I'm not reaching to him as the top streaming option. Streaming options are thin this week, so he's definitely in the conversation.
It's a horrible week. It's crazy.
It's very bad.
And just you you laid out Brian Flores' defensive dominance, and he's been scrambling like good veteran quarterbacks. Just Jake Browning has done an amazing job, all things considered, for his 3rd career start or whatever. It just seems like too big of a task, really. And I have him very down in the streamer rankings. Denny, do you have any Jake Browning thoughts there? Are you ready to move on to the backfield dynamic with Chase Brown?
I am, but Browning is in the regression files in the bad place. So. I'm with Kyle there. So the Chase Brown thing is fun and cool, and yes, I have him on every team. But over the past 2 games, Joe Mixon has a huge edge in snaps. He's outcarried Brown 40-17 in those 2 games. Mixon has 44 routes over those 2 games. Brown has 8 routes. He has 3 catches for 80 yards on those 8 routes. So he has been what we call in the business efficient on his pass routes. Minnesota is allowing the 8th lowest rushing success rate over the second half of the season, allowing the 3rd lowest yards before contact per rush. The Bengals are forget what I just said about the Bengals. Anyway, Minnesota is a nightmare matchup.
Well, you thought you had stuck the mealy mouth stat landing so well. You were like Simone Biles, like, give me the gold medal. And then you got distracted and couldn't finish the rest of your
I carried on with my notes, and the notes should have been separated. Oh, well. This is all to say that you literally can't start Chase Brown in anything.
Yeah. It would have been just easier to say that.
Actually, I should have just said that.
Have you tried? I had him initially penciled in for start sits as an obvious sit. And I was like, he's so far off the radar that it feels like low hanging fruit to call him a sit.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, I feel like if you're truly desperate in like a 14 team league, you could be like, maybe Chase Brown scores a 41-yard touchdown, but that's the extent of his fantasy appeal.
He is fast. He's
Very, very fast.
He's nearly as fast as Tyreek Hill, folks.
It's a hope and a prayer play, though, as you guys laid out in very illuminating fashion. Kyle, though, the backfield too at the Vikings is a bit. I can't speak today. Vikings backfield. Alexander Madison has been officially ruled out with this ankle injury.
Oh, nice.
We're all a nation turns its lonely eyes to Ty Chandler. We desperately need RB2 numbers from Ty Chandler. Kyle, I'm not going to name names. Will we get them?
Probably. I mean, the only competition in the backfield last week was Kenny Nwangwu. Nwangwu's a special teamer, a returner. He's good at that, but Ty Chandler outsnapped Nwangwu 40-3. It was a complete takeover of the backfield. And not that he had been trending towards being the starter, but he had been carving out a role for himself already, specifically as a pass catcher. So if you're combining early down work that he's probably going to be more efficient on than Alexander Madison, because that's a very low bar to cross, plus passing down work, RB2 numbers feel like the floor. Like he feels like he's in that ugly Ezekiel Elliott zone of like, dude, touches are touches. And this guy's getting 20 of them. I have Zeke ranked as, I think, the RB12 on the dot this week.
Unreal.
It's a little high. I think I was like the 16. Denny, what were you going to say there on Ty Chandler?
Ty Chandler's getting there. He's getting there, folks. The Bengals are a really bad run defense. Teams are hammering them. I'm not going to bore you with the numbers, but teams are hammering them when they get a lead. I think the Vikings will get a lead. Also, Nick Mullins being a Cousins-esque distributor of the ball is going to be so fun for Chandler and for Hawkinson.
So you think Nick Mullins is good? Kyle Shanahan didn't.
No, I'm just saying from a fantasy standpoint, Dobbs was taking rushing attempts away with his rushing.
Taking rushing touchdowns away too. He was scoring rushing touchdowns at
right.
unsustainable clip, and now those are gone.
He wasn't really throwing near the line of scrimmage. That all changes with Mullins. Mullins is not going to run once in this game, and Chandler's going to. I don't know. He could luck into like 8 targets here. Really
quick, we didn't even mention Justin Jefferson. He's technically questionable, but he said he's playing. Can we trust him as a wide receiver one? It's a lower end wide receiver one. Do we still trust him in the top 12?
You better believe it.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, perfect. Moving on. The Indianapolis Colts are 1.5-point home favorites against the Steelers team starting Mitch Trubisky, Denny Carter. Is the Gardner Minshew, though, scam on the other side of the ball on its last legs? Is this Colts offense Michael Pittman and no one else? Zach Moss, as Kyle loves to point out, is the first chalk play in the history of DFS to not get home this year. Is this offense seriously only Michael Pittman for you?
And by the way, Zach Moss accomplished that feat 2 weeks in a row.
He did.
Mega giga chalk, and he failed twice. So he is now distinguished as the only person to ever fail only chalk option. Anyway, all right. Wow. Yeah. So to get to your question, yes, it is only Michael Pittman and literally no one else. Since Gardner Minshew took over, Pittman has a 32% target share. Josh Downs is second on the team with a 16% target share. Pittman is being targeted on 32% of his routes with Minshew under center, 40% first read targets. And guys, the Steelers are a pass funnel, and I think the Colts will be forced to throw. Minshew needs volume. And so you asked about, is the Minshew scam over? I don't think it is. I actually think that we can keep this scam going one more week against the Steelers.
Michael Pittman, just imagine if he ever did anything too with these 8 catches that he gets every single week.
I'm not going to question it. I'm just not going to question it. I was wrong on him because I thought Anthony Richardson was going to start. I was wrong on him. I'm just going to shut up and tell you he's seeing all the targets.
He is seeing all the targets. Kyle, who is going to see the targets for the Steelers? Things were pretty bleak last week, although I believe I saw the stat that Mitch Trubisky had more fantasy points in that game than Kenny Pickett's ever had in the game, and it was one of the worst starts I've seen all season. That
might be true. That sounds true. A lot of guys have more fantasy points than the best Kenny Pickett game, like a ton, a disgusting amount.
What is the offensive outlook then for this team against the Colts defense that's really good in fantasy, by the way, for some reason, much better in fantasy than
they're scoring a bunch of touchdowns this year or something, I think. I'm not a defensive expert, so I don't know what they're doing or not, but they are actually a really good defense overall too. It's not just fantasy. They've been like a top 10 unit in EPA per drop back, and that's bad for Mitch Trubisky because he's not good. He's averaging under 6 yards per attempt, under a 4% touchdown rate, and My only qualm with the can the Minshew scam keep going is I don't see how this team puts up points with Mitch Trubisky, or had it been Kenny Pickett under center.
Right.
Just final note of this game, then. We talked about Zach Moss not getting home the past 2 weeks. We do know that he's still getting every single touch. Do we have to run it back with him as an
Yes,
RB1
we do.
streamer?
I swear to God.
All right. So the slappies will get home this week is what we're saying.
No, he's not. No, guys. We're off. He's not.
That's true. He's not a chalk play anymore. So he's finally
his price has gone up. Yeah.
All the sharps who were playing him went broke. Now they have no more money to play him, so he'll be under a.
I forget this is like 9-dimensional chess when it comes to DFS and roster ownership and things of that nature. The Dallas Cowboys, the Buffalo Bills do battle in the latest of a never-ending series of games of the century for both teams. Seriously, every week, both these teams are playing like the number 1 seed in the opposing conference. This one features the Bills as 2-point home favorites, Kyle. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this does not seem like a great spot for Steph Diggs to break his slump, does it? I know that the game total implies otherwise. I know DK Metcalf implied otherwise 2 weeks ago. Can Steph actually break his slump against this really good Cowboys defense?
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys have allowed the 25th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Not dreadful, but obviously well below average. They're third in EPA per dropback allowed. The fact that they're not even lower against wide receivers is probably just a function of volume and a few big plays. But the good news is Diggs is coming off a 30% target share for the first time since week 8. Basically, the moment they brought Dawson Knox back in the lineup, they started using Diggs more like we had seen through the first 7 weeks of the season. Dalton Kincaid's role didn't completely disappear, but it maybe not the same as it was sans Dawson Knox in the lineup. So I actually do think this is because of the total, and most importantly, because Diggs was playing a wide receiver 1A role when Dalton Kincaid was more prominent. Now is probably just straight up the wide receiver 1 again with no caveats. That's really why I think this is probably the bounce back spot for Diggs.
That's interesting. I actually had not thought of it that way. Denny, I was going to ask you about James Cook, but I'll ask you about James Cook in a minute. What is Dalton Kincaid's status with Dawson Knox back in lineup? He still caught 5 passes last week. I believe it was 21 yards. It was by far his fewest.
Yeah.
It was his fewest since the last time Dawson Knox was in the lineup. What's going on with Dalton Kincaid? Is this going to get like really annoying in fantasy?
No. He ran cold. There's nothing else to it here. He ran 94% of the routes last week, saw 7 targets, ran 70% of his routes from the slot. Dawson Knox, three targets, ran a route on 35% of Josh Allen's drop back. So I thought that Knox would be really bad for Kincaid, but his usage was fine. He'll be good. You keep starting.
I think Knox is probably bad for it is de facto bad for the third receiver, which he now is. But Dawson Knox isn't a target earner. So you're just putting a quote wind sprinter out there because Dawson Knox in the pecking order is obviously presenting no threat to Stefon Diggs, isn't presenting much of a threat to Dalton Kincaid. So you're kind of just throwing an extra lineman out there, which de facto is going to put a lot more targets in the hands of the players we care about. Except for that, unless you need a Khalil Shakir, then it's over, buddy.
Yeah, Khalil Shakir's over, yeah.
That's thankfully it's not a joke. I was eliminated in both leagues where I had to start Khalil Shakir last week. So it's quite literally.
You lucked out.
I did. Denny, so yeah, James Cook. Yeah, he survived and thrived post Ken Dorsey. He still hasn't really like exploded. He's been very settled in though, like the top 18, 20. Give us a check-in on his usage and maybe his outlook against the Dallas Cowboys. And again, a game total 50 and a half.
Yeah, I think the Bills basically said, like, Josh, you got to check it down sometimes, and that's worked out. James Cook's usage is actually crazy right now. I was shocked to see 54 touches over his past 3 games. 54 for James Cook.
13 captain, my captain.
Yeah, 13% target share over those 3 games. Importantly, like he's become, and the reason I say that Josh Allen clearly has been, told, please, Josh, check it down sometimes. James Cook has been targeted on 37% of his routes over those past 3 games. You compare that to the first 10 weeks of the season when he was targeted on 16% of his routes. So it really is a huge change in his role in this offense. And he's fended off, the old guys, Latavius Murray and Fournette.
Very quick aside on James Cook. I made him the picture for my running backs article this week.
Yeah.
And searching Getty images for a picture of James Cook, all the top results were like illustrations of the famed British sea captain James Cook and Arctic Monkeys rhythm guitarist Jamie Cook.
Oh, really?
And James Cook, I had to update my search to James Cook Bills to find a picture of the running back, and then I did, a very delightful one. But yeah, he's not getting any love from Getty. James Cook's been dead for like 230 years, and he's still dominating the Getty search. James Cook Cook's got to get his stats up. Kyle, the Cowboys pretty settled in offense, about as stable, as predictable of a unit as there is. One minor exception has been Jake Ferguson, just getting higher and higher in the rankings every week, producing every week. Is he now a top 5 tight end one? It doesn't really matter. If you have him, you're starting him. What would you call him a top 5 tight end one?
I don't quite have him as a top 5 tight end. He's only 9th in the NFL in targets, 12th in air yards. The one thing he's gotten home on is he's first in, at least among receiver, or at least among tight ends, in end zone targets, which makes sense. The team is passing a lot. They get near the end zone a lot, and he's good in that role. So I probably still don't have him as top 5 because like the true elite target earners still comprise that group. But like it's semantics if I'm calling him 6 or 7.
Yeah, either way, you are starting him. Either way, we probably like this game environment. Remember when every game total was north of 50?
Like, those were the days, man.
I'm serious. You'd go half a season, there wouldn't be a single game total under 40. Now every week it's like, well, let's get through the first 7 or 8 game totals. There are 34 and a half. It's been let's make every team Iowa again. It's been really, really great stuff from the NFL this year. I digress. We digress. We move on. Cannot speak. The supremely banged up Houston Texans find themselves as road underdogs in Tennessee, Denny, with everything on the line this week. Can we trust, that is in fantasy, everything on the line? Can we trust any Texans pass catcher if it's Davis Mills under center? CJ Stroud, as of Thursday afternoon, has yet to resume practicing.
Yeah, I mean, look, Noah Brown.
And cut his mic. Yeah, just cut it. I thought he was supposed to say no. But.
Wait, no. I do think Noah Brown is a guy you can start. Yeah, 7 targets over the past 2 weeks, 0.
How many catches on those?
0 receptions, but that doesn't.
But did you get any yards on the no catches? Is that a possibility?
He has, as far as I know, he has 0 yards on those 0 catches. So
you can get 0 yards and no catches, as we learned as we went through the lateral rules.
Yeah. All right. But listen. Here's why. Here's why I say I think you just got to roll with them because Nico Collins and Tank Dell have combined for 62% of Houston's air yards and 41% of their targets this season, 45% of their red zone targets. Like, I mean, it's just got to go somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. And honestly, it's either him or maybe John Mechie. Those are the two.
Well, Robert Woods is still around. He had 1 catch for -2 yards last week, so he kind of wishes he had 0 catches.
Yeah, I don't know.
Denny, what about Dalton Schultz? It seems like he's going to play. He hasn't gotten in a full practice still. Would you if for some reason you could choose, you could only choose Noah Brown or Dalton Schultz, who would you choose?
Noah Brown or Dalton Schultz? I would choose Brown. So Schultz makes me nervous because he's banged up. And last time we saw him playing banged up, he split the routes with Brevin Jordan.
Schultz was full on Monday or on Wednesday. I'd imagine he's good to go.
He was very limited on Thursday, Kyle, for some reason.
Yeah. See, I do think that you need to be careful with Schultz. I wouldn't be surprised if he's out for this game. Also, Brevin Jordan just happens to be way better. So I don't know.
I didn't know that's where you were taking it. It does seem like he cannot get healthy. Dalton Schultz has tried to get healthy. He's looked very powerfully into getting healthy. has been unable to do it so far. So I have him right on the tight end 1-2 borderline. He looked like he was a set and forget tight end 1. Then he got hurt. Like you say, he started splitting snaps. Has not been working. On the other side of the ball, can DeAndre Hopkins stay hot? I think he has 12 targets each of the past 2 weeks. Big time fantasy game against the Miami Dolphins. Tough defense on Monday night. The Houston Texans do not have a tough defense. Can Nuke Hopkins stay hot?
Yeah, probably. He's got 400 air yards in the past 2 weeks. Whenever they move past the sticks, it goes to him, and he's playing at a really high level still. The only concern here would be if Stroud doesn't play. Like, man, what kind of game is this going to be? We talk about the low totals of the season. We're getting 35 Derrick Henry carries. However, I still think that you're getting a ton of target share and air yard share, so much so that you have to play him. It's just whether this game is modestly interesting with the best rookie quarterback of recent memory under center, or if it's a run fest, at which point you're still playing him. It is less exciting, to be fair.
And if it's a run fest, we just don't really know. I mean, I guess it's probably Devin Singletary and not Dameon Pierce. It's been they're both 1 for 2 in leading the backfield since Dameon Pierce came back. In theory, I guess I would love to say, who even cares? Just don't play either. Then we know people are going to be in a position where they have to play one of them, though. Is it Devin Singletary, Kyle? Just going on who had the hot hand most recently and who has had the hot hand most of the year?
That's a good point. I do think that's a good point. Is even if it is Dameon Pierce, I don't know how rewarded you are if you play him and he gets more of the carries because he's been so much less efficient than Devin Singletary to where, like, sure, maybe you get 12, 13 carries, but he's been so inefficient. I don't know how much you care. Whereas if Singletary goes out and gets 15 or so, that's maybe notable. It's at least worth considering. So both the what do you win when you win, and like you said, Devin Singletary did get the hot hand treatment last week.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. If you place the Devin Singletary bet, you might not win, but you might actually win. If you place the Dameon Pierce bet, you are not winning either way. Very good analysis that I tried to dumb down. That I probably didn't need to. But the Packers are trying to rebound from a Monday night disappointment as 3.5-point home favorites against the Bucs, Kyle. They will presumably be doing so without Christian Watson. We know Watson's absence affects Jordan Love. How does it change things in the Packers receiver core? It sort of feels like Jaden Reed's season, does it not?
Yeah, Reed isn't running more routes, but I'm not convinced he's not the best receiver on this team. He's crushing in terms of the targets he earns, even when he's only getting 2/3 of the team's routes. They have kind of deployed a bit of a committee for that, like, third wide receiver role, and even the second. Dontavian Wick's also banged up, so maybe we get the full complement of routes for someone like Jaden Reed. He's also got, like, as far as receivers go, a really strong rushing profile where he's just adding an extra 15, 20 yards, sometimes a touchdown. I will note last week he was used exclusively at the line of scrimmage. He had the second fewest receiving yards in a game for a receiver with 8+ catches in NFL history. He had 2 more air yards than targets.
Wow, that's
but the good news is that's the PPR scam. We fire up the PPR scam with 8 catches for let's not worry about how many yards. But in your standard leagues, end around touchdown, both ends are covered.
And they've really got. They think he's Debo 2.0. Debo, I don't think has ever had only 27 yards and 8 catches, but they think he's Debo 2.0. You've got to like that in fantasy. Real quick, is anything you got to like with Aaron Jones? It seems like he's going to play. Every time he plays, he immediately gets hurt again. When he does finish a game, it's always like 20 touches for 62 yards. Do either of you even have an opinion on Aaron Jones against the Bucs defense? I don't think it's like great on the ground anymore, but it's still better on the ground than it is through the air.
I mean, I do think that the Packers will be forced to drop back a lot, barring some sort of weird game script. That's probably good for Jones as far as route running and maybe some PPR scammy type stuff. But as far as rushing goes, this Packers team is not doing it against the Bucs. It's just not.
And he's just not doing it. He's probably just not healthy enough to do it this year. Aaron Jones is like the classic. He needs the offseason here immediately. He's not getting healthy with whatever he's dealing with right now. See, Denny, anything worth mentioning with the Bucs? I called the Cowboys a stable offense. The Bucs might be the most stable. Just nothing changes in this offense. Has anything changed that's worth mentioning?
I mean, look, Chris Godwin's wife complained about his target share, and he was immediately. It was the squeaky spouse wheel, and theory, and it worked. 11 targets that led the team last week for Chris Godwin. I don't really see that carrying over though. Look, the Bucs are trying to win the NFC South, okay, and they're not going to. They're going. Baker Mayfield is going to pepper Mike Evans with targets down the stretch. He has all season. I think that'll just continue this week. I will say the Packers are a top 5 run funnel defense and have been pretty much all year. Rachaad White has 60 of 71 running back carries in the Tampa backfield over the past 3 games. And since week 9, Green Bay opponents are running at a 49% rate when the game is within 7 points either way. So the teams are establishing it. I think the Bucs could do that here, and Rachaad White could get home on volume.
Producer Adam does remind Chris Godwin is dealing with an injury. He's got a knee. He didn't practice Wednesday. He wasn't practicing it on Thursday. I will say Chris Godwin does the sort of thing fairly often, where I wouldn't be ringing the alarm bells.
All-time 3 DNPs and removed from the injury report on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not the most likely outcome.
Yeah,
I would not say that he's out yet. So, Denny, by the way, you're not buying you're not buying the narrative that Mike Evans reached 1,000 yards and then just immediately pieced out.
No, because he actually got real unlucky last week. He almost had a touchdown. His hand was out of bounds before his second foot was by like a micro.
What was his hand doing down there? Don't put that down there.
Yeah, I know. Don't try to cushion the blow. You go face first into the ground.
I'll say it's how you cushion the blow. If you want to break your wrist, fall on your face.
Yes, just simply fall on your face. So he Mike Evans should have had a pretty big game last week. I think he's going to have one here.
We don't know Jair Alexander's status. That could be important. Mike Evans, as we know, loves to duel with opposing number. Sometimes, maybe literally at some point with Marshawn Lattimore.
There's a lot of fighting.
There is a lot of fighting. They play during the fantasy playoffs. We hope you're in the fantasy playoffs. We'll help you get there right after this. This Sunday is an AFC showdown of playoff implications when Lamar Jackson and the Ravens travel to Jacksonville, Florida for a date with the Jaguars. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. And don't forget, find all your favorite NBC sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. Which, of course, brings us to Sunday Night Football. The aforementioned Ravens at the Jags is a 42.5 total. The Ravens are 3.5-point favorites. The Jags are kind of limping along. The Ravens are kind of surging again, but the Ravens kind of a classic team. They have momentum until they don't. Denny, they have momentum right now. I've complained about the Ravens in the past and their real-life offensive effectiveness not really manifesting itself in fantasy football. It finally did in quite vivid fashion in Week 14. Can they keep it going in Week 15? Against the soft Jaguars defense?
Yeah, I do think that they're going to be in a very similar spot, the Ravens, as they were last week against the Rams. The Rams, I mentioned in the funnel defense report last week, have become a very reliable pass funnel over the past 6 weeks. The Jags, on the other hand, have been a pass funnel all season from week 1. Basically no one has had real success on the ground against Jacksonville this year. If the Ravens once again lean into the passing attack, and I think we have good reason, they have good reason to do that because it was very successful last week. I mean, we're talking like no one had a higher neutral pass rate than the Ravens last week. I think we're going to see a similar thing this week, and I think that should fuel the sort of volume that Isaiah likely needs, Flowers, maybe Odell. You're rolling with these guys, and you're feeling pretty confident.
Please.
You hear that, Pat? He said maybe Odell. I know we had the whole conversation last week. He names all the players I guess Odell can get there too.
Well, the fact that he's running 50% of the routes, that's driving me nuts. But
the fact that he's better than Zay Flowers every single week doesn't matter.
I think they're trying. I think they're trying desperately to keep Odell upright for the playoffs.
It's almost certainly the case. He immediately got banged up early in the season, and then he comes back, and they, despite his incredible play, don't ramp up his routes. 100%. He's a dude with probably bad, almost certainly bad knees, who's 30-something years old, but is also an integral part of the passing attack. This team's Jerick McKinnon. Don't play him until you figure out what you want to do in Week 17. Good. Toy around with the weird stuff, and then maybe he gets a full route run in the playoffs, or if not, he's still a pretty good play.
I gotta say, it's a stunning comeback for him. I thought it was one of the most questionable signings in recent memory, giving him $15 million. I mean, and he is overpaid by the letter of the law, but they don't care about that right now. They've been caught short so many times in the receiver depth department, and it's a signing I did not think would work. That has really, really worked. Kyle, on the other side of the ball, everyone thought the same thing about Christian Kirk. He has worked as a signing in Jacksonville. He's out. He was out in Week 14. How did things shake out with Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Evan Ingram? Evan Ingram's beasting. Calvin Ridley, he's got a personal vendetta against me. He really wants the bank to have all my money.
You got a lot of targets, though. Does your league value purely targets? Does it give you points for any of that?
I mentioned target share to the bank examiner, and he said he had to mute himself real quick. When he came back after 72 seconds, I could tell he was still trying not to laugh.
I mean, that is the Calvin Ridley story, isn't it? It's really weird. Without Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram is the only intermediate option for this team. He has an ADOT below 5 this year, and then both Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley have ADOTs over 14. So they have two options: chuck it up deep to one of their two wide receivers, or a complete check down to Evan Ingram. The Ravens do not give up explosive plays. So as much as I didn't draft a lot of Evan Ingram, this guy is just a check down guy, he's going to get away with it this week because that's really their only option to complete short to intermediate passes.
So what is your guys' opinion on starting Trevor Lawrence against this defense? He had a usable day against the similarly elite Browns defense last week. He had to toss 3 interceptions to get there, though. Matthew Stafford did just pass all over the Ravens. All year, the Ravens have looked at me like the candidate where their numbers are so skewed, the light slate they faced. But It's week 15. Can we really keep making that argument? I mean, Matthew Stafford did throw over them, which got me suspicious again. But can we trust Trevor Lawrence, who's probably still can barely move on his high ankle sprain? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
If he gets that volume again, 54 dropbacks against Cleveland, I think that it could happen. And I think this game sets up for a lot of plays. Because
if the Ravens are running that pass heavy stuff again, it could look a lot like it did in Cleveland, to where by hook or by crook, lots of pass attempts will probably get Trevor Lawrence there, because he's not dreadful. Even the way he played last week, still a number of good throws. I don't think Denny thinks he's dreadful. He's probably a little overrated.
No, Denny thinks he's dreadful. That's fine.
I don't.
Denny thinks the second you're drafted to number 1 overall, Denny thinks you're awful. Kyler Murray stinks.
I like
Trevor
that.
Lawrence stinks. Bryce Young stinks.
Well, look, Trevor Lawrence is not small. That's what I'll say about him.
It's so big.
He has that going for him. By the way, Kyle saying by hook or by crook is the oldest thing as ever.
I didn't know. Kyle's read a book. Congratulations. He picked up a phrase in a book. It's pretty amazing.
It's one of the things that came up in my reading lessons. I've been trying to figure out the whole reading thing recently.
I've been trying to learn to read. He's only been reading in zeros and ones on the show. He's not just reading words the whole time. He's just reading data. But yeah, he's learning how to read actual words now. So we love it. Coming off the most stunning loss of the season, the Miami Dolphins are nevertheless 8.5-point home favorites against the Jets, Kyle. It has been a while since we've seen this Dolphins offensive machine revved all the way up. I'm guessing we won't against the Jets this week, even if Tyreek Hill is healthy. I think Tyreek Hill is going to play, but it is genuinely uncertain. What is the Dolphins' offense outlook against the Jets team? They kind of just messed around on Black Friday. That was a weird game. The Jets have hope again, I guess. What are you expecting to see from the Dolphins offense?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they'd take a more run-heavy approach in this one. The Jets are one of the best pass defenses in the league. They're also pretty good against the run, but they do give up a little more explosive plays on the ground and a little less through the air. And like you said, Tyreek Hill is probably playing and is probably nowhere close to 100%. Also, Devon Achane banged up. So it sets up for a really good Raheem Mostert spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think they ended up trying to run the ball and getting out with a low-scoring win, which versus the Jets is typically a winning recipe. And teams have chosen to run against the Jets at the highest run rate over expected, the inverse of pass rate over expected in the NFL this year. And it's not really even a close argument on who's getting the most run funnel type of action. So yeah, probably lots for Raheem Mostert. Like we talked about with Hill, if Achane plays, I don't know what incentive they have to give him a lot of touches. We've also said that, and like you said, we did see at least one good Dolphins game 2 weeks ago when they dropped 45 on the Commanders, and that was the game in which Achane, I was like, oh, they're going to give him a dozen touches and shut him down by the third quarter, and all of his touches, which were 20, came in the second half. So if he's playing, and if Tyreek Hill's playing, they're some of the best players in the position. You have to play them and live with the results.
I do with Tyreek. There were 2 touchdown favorites and lost to the Titans, so I doubt they're taking any game for granted. Yeah. I still wouldn't be surprised if he's not anywhere close to 100%. If they do hold him out, just trying to keep their eyes on the bigger picture. But I think they're probably too afraid of losing this game. And Denny, I know it's probably a bit where you say you don't think the Dolphins are going to win another game, but what does make you concerned about the Dolphins, especially heading into this matchup?
They had a key offensive line injury. I think their center went down with a season-ending
down, and they Connor Williams, and they immediately had a botched snap after it. It was 3 plays later, and they lost it.
They did.
The Achane's banged up. Tyreek Hill, like Kyle said, he's a tough guy. He often plays hurt, but he's not going to be as effective. They're playing this game against a Jets defense that just shuts down boundary receivers. It's going to require a really poor game from the Jets in order for the Dolphins to win here. And that could happen because the
Jets never play a poor game.
But I do want to say, I just, the vibes, guys, there are some vibes happening in this game. The vibes are very good for the Jets right now, whether you like it or not.
And Jets. No one denies it.
Listen, I don't like it. I don't like the good vibes for the Jets. You know that about me. But Zach Wilson, quote, according to his teammates, doesn't give an F anymore. Okay. And he played like it last week. And I think that he'll continue to play like it against the Dolphins. If I'm a Dolphins fan, man, I am terrified.
The cartel has already taken everything he knew and loved. So Zach Wilson's back with nothing to lose and a bad attitude.
That's he's the Punisher.
He's the Punisher. And the Dolphins just still strike me as the ultimate injuries off team. They're awe-inspiring when everyone's healthy, but Devin Achane, it's like it's just like, who could have seen this coming? Wow, the 5'8", 180-pound running back was probably just silly all along to make. It's just silly all along to have him forecasted for such a big role, for them to give him such a big role.
Yeah.
They needed to pick their spots better with him. He might play in this game, though. Denny, real quick, part of the Jets vibes, Breece Hall had his best game as a receiver last week. 8 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Can he still be in the top 24 this week, even though all 32 teams are active?
Look, I mentioned this before, and it just continues happening. Anytime Zach Wilson's under center for the Jets, they're pass heavy. They were 11% over their expected drop back rate against Houston last week. They're usually
the game was a torrential downpour when Houston couldn't score a point, and all of their receivers either entered the game inactive or left.
Was in a rowboat.
Dude, he was out there swimming to the first down, never got close. And as Denny points out, they were the highest pass rate over expected team in the league last week.
They were, and they're usually double-digit percentage over their expected dropback rate when Zach Wilson plays. So Breece Hall saw 9 carries against Houston, but ended up having a really good fantasy day because he caught 8 of 9 targets. He ran a route on 65% of Zach Wilson's dropbacks. Last time these two teams played, Breece Hall had 9 targets. Jets running backs combined for 14 targets against these Dolphins. So I think we have a formula. I think we have a formula for Breece Hall. It doesn't really matter what he does on the ground. He's going to see a lot of checkdowns. And by the way, Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall combined for a 72% target share last week.
Denny, real quick question off script. Where will your God be when the Dolphins win 42-7?
We're gonna have to look for my God, but my God's gonna be present because the Jets are gonna win 16-12.
So we are looking everywhere for Denny's God, and he's saying Denny can only live if he drinks the Panera 5 Loco. It has to be a 2-liter bottle.
I won't do it.
It can't just be 16 ounces or whatever. You need to have 2 liters of the poison lemonade to live, Denny. Just think long and hard about it, okay? The Chiefs are roughly touchdown favorites against a Patriots team that finally got a dub in Week 14, Denny Carter. The main storyline remains the Chiefs and their offensive struggles. At least on paper, the Pats do not qualify as an obvious bounce-back spot. Is this correct?
It is correct. You look at all the EPA data, folks, and I did, and none of it's good for opponents of the Patriots. They are shutting down everything, including the passing offense, and they're neither a run nor a pass funnel. So it's really hard to see a path.
And yet you said Bill Belichick has never been good.
Curious. It is curious. I wanted to ask you guys, where do you have Mahomes? Where is my God now?
As Kyle referenced, it's such a bad week for quarterback. He's still safely in the top 12. I think I have his QB 6, Kyle.
I have him lower. I did this AMA on Reddit earlier today, and I got Stafford versus Mahomes 4 times. I went Stafford.
Yeah, every time. Are you sure? Because
I know it was just double checking. I
sure?
know you've answered this 5 times, but how confident do you feel in said answer? But I mean, Vegas is really confident that the Rams are putting up points, second highest implied team total. Whereas, scrolling. Chiefs are sandwiched between the Saints and the Colts for team total.
And you know what's strange? It's we're talking as if this Chiefs offense has changed. They're 7.3% over their expected pass rate. That leads the entire league. So that hasn't changed. The nature of this KC offense hasn't changed. But man, the production has just fallen off a cliff. I just want to say I really do like Jerick McKinnon in this game as a dump off option against a secondary that I don't think the Chiefs are going to want to challenge.
Well, have you considered the fact that Patrick Mahomes is angry now?
Dude, that's the only thing that's scaring me. I have considered it. It keeps me up at night because I know I have him ranked probably well below consensus. That scares me because his vibes have hit so low that they're good again.
That game, it was literally that game I joked about. Derek Carr does something horrible. It's obviously his fault, and he still is blaming. He blames A.T. Perry, the rookie, just getting in his face. Where Marcos Valdes-Scantling drops an 82-yard touchdown in the 8th straight game, and Pat Mahomes is kind of he rubs his hands a little bit. So I'm man, this guy just is unflappable until he totally melted down to the point where he was literally complaining to Josh Allen. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, man.
Where they're out there for like their bro embrace, and he's just complaining. Man, this guy's pissed. And I've never seen that before. And now I'm
we needed it. I like that. I like to see him a little fiery.
Well, I'd like to see him fiery, but I want to see him fiery at the right person. Like he should have been going.
Everyone knows what that was about. Kadarius Toney knows that they're actually melting down over him and not the call.
No, but
that needs to be,
guys, that needs to be explicit. Listen, I was a big
Dolphins fan. They're being zoomer about it.
I was a big Dolphins fan growing up. Dan Marino would humiliate receivers.
I was going to say Peyton Manning. I was going to say Peyton Manning would throw intentional hospital balls the moment his receiver dropped one, getting those dudes crushed. Yet Patrick Mahomes is willing to die on the cross for obviously Kadarius Toney penalty.
Mahomes needed to physically go after Kadarius Toney during that game or after that thing. Producer Adam says, I didn't know this. Chiefs open at 10.5 point favorites. They're down to 7.5. Patriots are winning.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
Stop. Denny loves to say bad teams are winning. I feel like we're already done talking about this game, but Kyle, Chiefs backfield without Isaiah Pacheco didn't do anything last week. Will it do anything this week? Denny claims Jerick McKinnon is going to.
Didn't Jerick McKinnon score last week?
Yeah, who cares? I mean, else scored last week. It's like the Colts have like 4 different tight ends you've never heard of score a touchdown every week. It doesn't really matter. You got to do more than to score.
That's come on, man. McKinnon's a good play.
Good play.
He's a good play.
Wow.
If you want the lowdown on the backfield, Clyde Edwards-Helaire saw more carries. None of them matter because McKinnon played more snaps on short down and distance, all of the snaps on long down and distance, and basically all the 2-minute drill. He's getting every high value touch, even if he's like literally capped at 10 touches. It's basically what we did at the end of last season, where sure, he's going to look like a screaming regression candidate on every spreadsheet. And he's Patrick Mahomes' second receiver who also plays at the goal line. He's not going to regress.
Real quick, we already talked about this a little earlier in the show, Denny. Can Zeke get home as a top 24 option? And what was it, like 29 touches last week?
29 touches, 140 yards, and a tutty.
Is he getting home in the top 24 again this week?
Barring some very weird game script, yes, I do think that he can. But even with weird game script, he could get home just on a bunch of checkdowns. Teams are really checking down at a high rate against Kansas City. Lots of 2 high safeties. Of course, you probably don't play that against the Patriots so much, but yeah, I mean, just because, based purely on volume, we are going to feed Zeke this week.
I know that's what you love. I tried to revive one of your old bits. Kyle has Zeke ranked higher. Denny, would you rather play Ezekiel Elliott or Ty Chandler?
Oh, that's a good one. I guess Elliott.
Yeah, I think I'll make a 3 for 3 on Elliott. We will move on, though. The Bears and Browns square off in Cleveland, Ohio, with a total south of 38. It's actually over 38 now. It's 38.5. The Browns are getting roughly 3 points at home, Kyle. The story here is Joe Flacco and his new 1-year contract, and his pass rates over expected. Denny referenced those earlier in the show. Will that remain the case against the Bears? Another defense that, along with the Broncos and Vikings, has been improving for much of the second half of the season.
Yeah, Bears defense has been way better since way better. I'll get to the heel turn. Has been way better since acquiring Montez Sweat at the trade deadline. But also they've faced Josh Dobbs, who's since been benched, Derek Carr, who's very bad, Bryce Young, who's dreadful, and Jared Goff, who's fine. But I mean, Jared Goff is by far the best quarterback they've faced since all of their stats turned around. They're probably a marginally better defense than we saw earlier in the year. They're probably benefiting from a really easy schedule over the past 5 games.
Would Joe Flacco not constitute?
No. Joe Flacco is good. The thing about the difference between Derek Carr and Joe Flacco is that one of them is good and one of them plays for the Saints. And the other one's Joe Flacco.
Man.
I think that this game has a really sneaky, great environment because you have the Browns averaging 75 plays per game, which leads the league. You have the Bears averaging
75 plays a game for the Browns. That's got to be a joke.
I'm sorry. This is I do have this squared off from week 8 to week 14, but
still, it doesn't matter what the slider is. The
point remains. This game has a chance to be as wild as the Jags Browns last week, and that was very fun for fantasy.
That's fun.
I'm looking up the Cleveland. So the games in Cleveland, as we know, there's never been a good weather game in the history. Of I'm looking up the weather right now on my phone. I was expecting to see the wind emoji. There's no wind emoji. There is a rain emoji though for Sunday. So we'll see. But I'm sure
as long as there's not wind, I think the weather nerds would tell you that rain doesn't really have like much of a statistical impact. It's like winds of sustained 20 plus is really where
20 plus is when it gets concerning. I was expecting to see the wind emoji. One of those
you always expect to see that
Lake
when
Erie
they play out in the
hurricanes.
middle of Lake Erie. Yeah,
I do have some memories of recent seasons where beat writers would be like, it's so cold, Pat, don't drink your don't sip your drink right now. It's so cold that I can't get out of my car to go to the stadium. And it's like no one can survive in this cold, and then everybody's perfectly fine on the field. So I
you are no, as you know, I'm one of the biggest weather faders. There are Kyle. The only thing I pay attention to is sustained 20 plus for the win. And even that, usually you got to be getting around 25, 30 for it to where it's like batting down Josh Allen passes, as we saw in the very famous Patriots-Bills game.
That was a game, man.
20 plus win is really that's where it does get hairy.
By the way, I moved the slider, guys, and Cleveland is still averaging 75 plays per game.
What is going on?
It went up to 85.
What is going on in Cleveland, Ohio? It feels like we're done with this game, but we're not even close. Our Fields and DJ Moore, Denny, quote, screwed against this Browns defense. DJ Moore nursing an ankle injury.
No, they're not. They'll be fine. He'll be fine. I mean, he is dominating air yards, which is really important. Justin Fields is slightly more accurate on those downfield throws of late, so we like to see that. And I'm not. I mean, of course you're starting DJ Moore. The fact that he got 3 rushes last week, I think this team. I think the Bears could finish strong. They are playing for a lot. I mean, Justin Fields is playing for his future. Matt Eberflus is being quote evaluated like over
that
these
was
past,
bad.
Yeah, I mean, and so they won last week. I wouldn't discount this team making a little bit of a run, and part of that success has to be through DJ Moore, who happens to be very good. So I feel good about him.
DJ Moore is averaging 21.8 PPR points in like the 10 games he's played with Justin Fields, which would make him the wide receiver 2 on the year, tied with CeeDee Lamb.
Wow.
It's really just those Tyson Bagent games that knocked DJ Moore off it, because I've got him still ranked as an elite wide receiver 1 this week. We do hope he's healthy. As you hear this, we're not entirely sure about his health.
Right.
Kyle, do we care about either of these backfields? Seems like there's probably more juice in the Cleveland group, but kind of got weird rotations going on. Jerome Ford, I guess, is maybe the safest of like these 5 running backs. Is Deontay Foreman safe? What do we care about in these backfields?
Yeah, we know exactly what the Browns are doing. Jerome Ford runs plenty of routes. He gets more carries, and then they sub him out at the goal line, which is the only reason he doesn't rank as like a consistent top 12 fantasy running back, because he gets that level of touches and then he never gets to get in the end zone. So, I mean, since Kareem Hunt signed with the team, he has 9 carries to Jerome Ford's 3 inside the 5, 3 times as many. That's the only value Kareem Hunt has. He gets like 10 touches a game. Not that useful. He's not extremely efficient, but it just takes 1 touchdown, and he's like the RB 27 on the week. On the other hand, there is a very clear Deontay Foreman was the RB1 really without question last week. Out-carried his backups, I believe it was 11-4. Also out-targeted them 3-0. And the Bears have changed up their backfield every other week for the entirety of the season. You're still betting on Foreman to be the lead, but I don't feel that sense of stability. Like, I know what is going on in Cleveland. I know exactly what they're doing. We have a pretty good data set on it. We just don't have the data set, sort of like the Texans, to be sure that Foreman is the guy going forward, though he's the clear bet to make.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go, Denny.
It was on something else. So good.
No, I was going to put a bow on this game. So
then I do need to put this in. That was awkward. So since week 10, Chicago opponents have passed at a 65% clip in neutral game script. I mean, we're talking about 40 plus dropbacks for Flacco again. I think he's live. I think it makes Njoku exciting and Cooper and everybody.
Marty Cooper's probably a great buy low. I talked about Devontae Adams as a great buy low last week, and it didn't hit at all, but let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Devontae Adams never having another 100-yard game as long as he lives. It's fine. But Denny, I was going to tell you it was pretty amazing that we do know each other well enough now that you knew somehow that I would die laughing at you saying that it was too cold for the reporter.
I saw you raise the cup to your face, and I said, "Uh-oh, I gotta pump the brakes on this," because he could literally just spit all over his computer.
Yes, thank God you sent the warning. Thank God for the Washington Commanders defense. The Commanders do come off by as touchdown road dogs against the Rams, Denny. The Washington passing attack was going off the rails before the open date. Any chance it gets going again in LA?
It's just this wide receiver usage is not good. Like, Terry McLaurin in a blowout game script, it's 4 quarters of blowout game script. He posts a 0 against the Dolphins. Jahan Dotson does nothing. Logan Thomas does nothing. Sam Howell scores 20 plus fantasy points. Come on, what's going on there?
It is nuts.
I mean, it's the rushing touchdowns, obviously, but I just answered it for you. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, there should be a lot of passing. I wrote in the regression files that Washington should pass it 1.4 million times this week. That's analytics, and the Rams are a huge pass funnel. So you gotta think that enough dropbacks will fuel target volume for McLaurin. Maybe for Logan Thomas or Dotson.
Real quick, a lot of people probably would not agree with this because of the way he was playing heading into the bye. I still ranked Sam Howell over Matthew Stafford this week. I have both in the top 12, but I mean Sam Howell, he's going to get 48 attempts. He just needs some of them to be good, and I still trust Sam Howell to never stop throwing more than I trust Matthew Stafford to never stop throwing. We know they don't even want him to throw. It's been really weird that he is throwing so much. But take it you do not agree with that take, seeing as you were choking back.
I mean, they've got a team total in the neighborhood of the San Francisco 49ers, whereas you're looking at a very, it has to get there in garbage time, and the reason you got there in garbage time in the first place is because he was garbage for Sam Howell's situation. So I get it. Sam Howell's not a bad play. This is not an indictment of Sam Howell's fantasy value. He's going to drop back a ton. He's going to get 300 yards in the fourth quarter after the Rams starters have been long gone. But at the end of the day, I do want to bet on the guy who's been playing incredible football as of late and has a massive team total. Vegas buys this as sticky.
Look, I know we had talked about the Rams becoming kind of run heavy. That all went out the window last week. I think it continues to go out the window this week, maybe because Stafford's healthier and they just have a little more confidence in him as a drop back guy. In neutral game script, Washington is seeing a 68% pass rate against them over the past 7 weeks. So it's I think the Rams actually could pass a lot here.
I'm sure the Commanders fix their defense during their checks notes. Week 14 bye, real good time of year to have a bye.
I'm sure their 175-pound corner put on 30 pounds after the check notes. Week 12 bye.
175. Kyle, you're giving them 20 plus pounds there.
Yeah, that's actually not a joke. Kyle, how high for Antonio Gibson if Brian Robinson sits with his hamstring injury, as seems likely?
Yeah, probably pretty high. I didn't want to rank him as high first because we've got Chris Rodriguez who could come in and take early down work. But the thing is, you're playing Antonio Gibson because now the floor is raised to 10 carries and legitimately 8 targets. He's going to see so many checkdowns from Sam Howell, which is something Chris Rodriguez just doesn't have in his profile and his repertoire coming out of college. So although I don't think he's quite the smash that Zeke or even Ty Chandler are, he's probably still a top 24 running back.
Denny, Puka Nacua had been running very clearly ahead of Cooper Kupp since Cooper Kupp had returned from his injury. That dynamic flipped last week. Not that Nacua had a bad game, but Cooper Kupp was Cooper Kupp again, at least in the box score. I don't know on film. Are we ranking Cooper Kupp ahead of Puka Nacua and kind of the smash spot to end all smash spots in the Commanders defense?
Yeah, right. I mean, they should be ranked very closely, I think. Over the past 2 games, Cooper Kupp has 18 targets. Puka has 15. DeMarcus Robinson has 15 targets as well. It's just 2 very different receiving profiles. Puka Nacua has a 13.3 average depth of target over those 2 games. Kupp is at 5.5 for his ADOT. So Kupp is being the PPR scam. Nacua is seeing the more downfield stuff, which is obviously inherently more volatile. But I have a tough time saying like definitely Cup over Nakua, but it doesn't really matter. You're starting them anyway. I would say Demarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell. Listen. Tutu Atwell suffered a concussion last week. I don't know if he is going to play this week. Demarcus Robinson could see a full complement of snaps in a Rams offense that uses 3 wide receivers at a league leading 92% rate. He leads the team in air yards, guys, over the past 2 games.
Okay, over the past 2 games.
We thought this Browns stat was funny about all the plays they're running. This is degenerate. How much is he on DraftKings? Did you say that? Because
I don't know, Kyle, but I will have some exposure. Yeah, I mean, DeMarcus Robinson, he's out there, and guys, I have. Oh no, he's playing Washington. I for a second I thought it was he had his revenge game last week against Baltimore. Never mind. Okay.
We could check. He might be a former commander. That's still up for debate. He's played for many teams.
You got real quick, talking about DraftKings. I hadn't played probably like 6 weeks. I played last week and I won money.
Oh, congratulations. How many thousands? Millions?
Bulletproof. It was, hey, listen, I'm not going to say he was on the dollar bill. Let's just say he was never president, though. It wasn't Alexander Hamilton. It was the other one. So, well, let's tell you, I'm a little DFS expert over here. Bet you, where's your God now, huh?
I gotta Google this. Who was the president on dollar bill?
It was Ben Franklin.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Well, congrats. Who'd you hit on?
Who did I had like 3 snowflakes, and I hit on the Purdy and Devo stack.
Okay.
I hit on Evan
Ingram.
I got snowflaked by Zach Moss.
We all did, brother. Don't worry. That was 100% of players did, so it really didn't matter.
I had 0 guys. We went on this show last Thursday, and we all said it's Debo week. We all said that together in unison. And then I played 0% Debo in DFS.
Really? I'm not even kidding. The only reason I played was I gotta get a Debo line.
Really?
Yeah. I'm dead serious. Let's see who. There was one other who flaked me. I don't care about the terms and conditions. Yeah, whatever. I'm agreeing to all these. Man, whatever. I can't see right now. But we're moving on. We are running out of time on this show, other than to assess my DK. Single entry lineup from last Sunday. The 49ers are 2-score road favorites against the sleepy Arizona Cardinals. Kyle Dvorchak. It's another zone defense for the aforementioned Deebo Samuel. Does that give him the fantasy edge over Brandon Ayuk for week 15?
I mean, Deebo has definitely been better versus zone than he has been against man this year. But as I pointed out, Brandon Ayuk has a higher target share, air yard share, targets per route run, yards per route run, and more fantasy points against zone coverage as well, because he's just been that good. Really, the split is both of the receivers overall have performed very well against zone, but only one of them, Brandon Ayuk, has performed well against man. That's the split, not as much like Deebo is this team's zone crusher, both in efficiency and volume. And it's been primarily the rushing work that has really put him over the top of he's a good fantasy option, but I don't know if he's his number 1 receiver. It's hard to tell that apart when he gets a rushing touchdown every single week. I think he now has the most rushing touchdowns for a receiver in a season, and the 2nd most, and then the 7th most, and then tied again for the 7th most, I think.
So, yeah, it's Debo season. It's always Debo season again. Well, I don't know why it was never not Debo season for a very long time. Seems like they should look very strongly into featuring him every week. Denny, what is the Arizona Cardinals offensive outlook? What do we even really care here about this? James Conner had a revenge game 2 weeks ago. That was kind of cool.
Niners opponents are passing at an 85% clip in neutral game script. So we are going to see a lot of dropbacks. Kyler Murray might be somewhat interesting in that scenario because those dropbacks could turn into rushing attempts. I don't know. Like they're really tough against tight ends, so you actually can't feel good about Trey McBride. Honestly.
Really, I bet you still can.
I mean,
I still feel good about
you're going to start him, but like it's an ugly spot for everybody. It's real ugly for Marquise Brown. So I don't know, guys. It's a struggle. James Conner is losing out on the route running and the targets in this offense. So unless things kind of stay even, he's not going to get there.
And they're not staying even. So
yeah, I mean, really, like this Cardinals. I was looking at this Cardinals rush defense is going to be eaten alive. They just have no chance here.
The only chance would be one of those games where like the shanty's just bored. But before we move on to the next game, Kyle, so I've got the lineup here. One of the other people who flaked me was the one play I asked you for. Flaked harder than anyone.
Oh no, you shouldn't have played that. That was terrible.
It was terrible. I knew what I was getting into when I played Jonathan Mingo.
Did you see the 55-yard? Dude, he had a 55-yard touchdown.
I know.
Just barely overthrown.
I actually did not see that.
Then you're gonna lose your mind. Your eyes are gonna pop out of your skull when you see all of his air yards.
Oh no, I watched the game.
He didn't score any points. To be clear, he totally snowflaked. It was like 2 for 22, and I thought my prayers were answered when he got the 2 for 22 because he was zero balling in halftime.
Bryce Young,
but oh man, that 55-yarder could have really changed my day.
Listen, Bryce Young has the yips. The only a quarterback with the yips could miss that throw.
He's seeing more ghosts than people at this point.
Oh, come on. We'll get to that in just a minute. But my other snowflake was Zach Moss and Jonathan Mingo. And then the one like dumb, like I'm not a DFS expert play. I was like, just trying to make the money fit. Like, whatever. Josh Jacobs is going to get 20 touches. Who cares? Just put him in there. And he instantly snowflaked. Man,
I think your other option instead of Mingo was Parker Washington, and that one got laughed out of the park. And I think he scored a garbage time touchdown.
I actually did laugh at
He had like 7 points. But
I know Pat doesn't even believe Parker Washington's real.
He's not.
He's hardly, so it's all right.
Yeah, he's not real. Smarting from back-to-back losses to the 49ers and Cowboys. The Eagles are modest 4-point road favorites against the Seahawks, Denny. Things have really gotten messy here. I think it's really just about that murderer's row schedule. I've never seen a more difficult 5-game slate in my entire life. I really have not. What do we expect from the Eagles, and what do we think their offensive approach in Seattle, Washington is going to be this Sunday?
They are going to establish it. There's just no two ways about it. The Seahawks are the worst rush defense in the NFL over the past month, and it's not even close. When you look at EPA data, yards after contact per rush, yards before contact, all that nerdy stuff, it says that the Seahawks are being bludgeoned via the rush. The Eagles are talking incessantly about running the ball. Okay, it's
real bad.
It's very annoying. It's very annoying, and but that's what they're going to do. And so I actually think, DeAndre Swift, I know he's been disappointing. I know that Boston Scott and Gainwell mixed in last week kind of made things messy. This is, whether you like it or not, a smash spot for DeAndre Swift. If he can't do it against the Seahawks, folks, he's not doing it, period.
Bit aside, I don't think he's going to do it. I just don't know if he can do it at this point.
No?
I feel like it could be like Kenneth Gainwell. Like, where do you have DeAndre Swift ranked, Kyle? I had a hard time getting him in the top 20 with all 32 teams playing. There's a lot of good setups running. There's a lot of bad setups for quarterbacks this week. There's a lot of good setups for running back. Denny does got me scared that I have him too low, though, because it makes everything Denny said makes a lot of sense.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I had him in my top 20. Oh, I have my rankings right here because I think the hardest thing is his touchdown odds feel so slim when he's got the best touchdown scorer, not touchdown back, but touchdown scorer. I have him at, let's see here, 21. So I was just.
I think I do 21 also. Denny is right though; they are possessed by the idea of establishing it. I feel a little nervous about that after hearing Denny's spiel.
What about like Javonte ahead of him? I feel like Javonte is kind of a similar, like 2-down back, can get targets, but he doesn't play the passing game role. How do we feel about him versus Javonte, who I think they're kind of similar in that sense?
I have them I think quite literally back to back.
They're back to back, which is why I asked.
I have DeAndre Swift RB20, Javonte Williams RB21.
I have them 20 and 21 the other way.
I will say that looking at like the funnel stats, like teams are not like running it at an insane pace or insane rate against the Seahawks, but when they do, they're very successful. So
I think maybe I agree with you that the Eagles might just be trying to cleanse the demons this week, and things have been not broken with the passing attack, but just not running well. And they kind of need a palate cleanser, like a reset game. And we know that when they want to, they can become a 52 rush team. They haven't done it in a long time. I could see, and Jalen Hurts, was banged up. So I could see them maybe going super mega run heavy.
Yeah.
But it is very
Giga ultra nuclear.
Giga ultra
Chernobyl meltdown levels of run heavy.
There you go. Denny Goddard season ? Trying to read what I wrote here. Did not have a good return in week 14. What is Dallas Goddard's outlook in the game where you have said the Seahawks are, the Eagles are going to set the single game rush attempts record.
Yes, I clearly said that. If you roll back the tape, I don't know. I feel like
Amen, brother.
You don't have to start. You don't have to start Goddard here.
Goddard or Dalton Schultz?
Schultz.
Wow, that was real fast from both of you.
Yeah, I don't know. I just he didn't run a ton of routes last week. Maybe that changes with another week of play under his belt or practice, whatever. But I'm not. It's a bad matchup. I don't think that the Eagles are going to pass a lot. I mean, remember the Eagles can be like insanely run heavy and just destroy target volume for the pass catchers. So like AJ Brown might get his, but
Eagles have also been really adaptive to their opponents. Like a lot of teams see, like, the Falcons see their opponents have faced the highest pass rate over expecting the league. They don't care. They don't adjust. The Eagles are kind of the opposite. They've been really malleable over the past 2 years on what their opponents give up and attacking that. So if that comes through the ground, I can see them leaning into that.
Kyle, what are we seeing from the Seahawks wide receivers of late? This seems more stable, or things aren't really changing anymore between DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN. Have you seen anything interesting in the data over the past few weeks?
I think you pointed out that the routes have really stabilized. JSN is clearly at not quite a full-time role, but near enough as the team's primary. Like, they're not subbing in for 2 tight ends much anymore. That's resulted in a target share 20% or above, but he's not dominating the targets. He doesn't move downfield. And Tyler Lockett is in a similar space because DK Metcalf has become the primary and really good field stretcher for the team. Since week 11, he has over 40% of the air yards. So, do with that information what you will. The Eagles are a really bad pass defense, so they're probably all startable. But I think DK Metcalf has put a lot of space between himself and the other two, while Tyler Lockett and JSN, I actually don't think there's much to separate the two right now.
Yeah, there's not. I kind of just give Tyler Lockett a wide receiver 3 emeritus advantage over JSN, but I don't know if it's actually all that logical.
Seahawks are going to throw a ton here. Eagles are the most extreme pass funnel.
We don't know who the quarterback's going to be, I will say. It seems like it's going to be Geno, but it could be Drew Lock again. I don't know if it makes a ton of difference. The Eagles' pass defense is so bad. Like, it's just terrible. Really. Everyone knew they were going to regress. I knew that was a popular summer storyline, but man, I don't know if anyone thought they would be like number 32 pass defense. Kevin Byard hasn't really made a difference either. Real quick, can either Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet get home for RB2 numbers? The answer seems to be no, right? You got such an unsatisfying committee. It's just like,
I know that's the problem.
Why did they draft Zach Charbonnet? Just why'd you do it? Why'd you do it?
Yeah, it's resulted in exactly what we feared, is just two running backs who are not seeing enough touches to be RB2s. Yeah, their usage is all over the place. Sometimes Kenneth Walker's the early down guy. Sometimes Charbonnet is. Sometimes they're running routes. Sometimes they're not. I mean, good luck. Just good luck. There is no rhyme or reason for how these guys are being used.
Gotten really hung up lately. I have no idea why. I keep thinking about, what if the Chargers had drafted Zach Charbonnet? Because I was thinking about how the Seahawks keep over-investing in running back, and the Chargers every week, like, I'm surely one of these guys behind Austin Eckler can be totally non-worthless, and then they just don't do anything ever. Yeah. And if they had just maybe tried to be serious one time.
If the Chargers had played Josh Kelly as a starter in DFS once, they never would have tried to run him back as the backup.
No, they would not have. We digress. The spiraling New Orleans Saints are nevertheless 6-point home favorites against the New York Giants. Kyle, is there anyone worth caring about in this New Orleans offense not named Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, or Taysom Hill? Taysom appears to be playing. I think it's Rashid Shaheed returning. There's a lot going on with the Saints, including everyone.
That's the breakdown. It's hard to tell what's going on right now because of all the injuries. But I can tell you, it doesn't look ideal for Chris Olave. Back-to-back DNPs with an ankle injury, and that would be, as if this offense needed any more drastic blows. That would probably be the death knell, because he has been by far and away the number one receiver. He leads the NFL in air yards. He's got an elite target share. Although he doesn't always come home with it, the alternative is like build the plane out of Rashid Shaheed, which just won't work. So I think even if he plays, they will have an immense run rate against the Giants because they wouldn't have other options. Like you said, Taysom Hill looks likely to return. Shaheed's probably a true coin flip. He's limited throughout the week. They said a few weeks ago that it seems like a little bit of a longer-term injury. It's 50-50. I would not play him if he comes back because I'd be shocked to see him in a full-time role.
I would be remiss, Denny, if I did not tell the audience to check out the latest Galaxy Brains, where we go very in depth on Derek Carr's game prep, which involves, as Denny pointed out, involves being frozen
in a hyperbaric chamber
for 6.5 days. So
I mean, yeah, we looked into it very strongly and came away with some really good insight into how the Saints keep him on the field.
And I just realized the hyperbaric chamber isn't even the one where they freeze you.
That's a cryogenic chamber, right?
Not even the one where they freeze you. And
well, we're gonna have to edit that one.
The whole bit.
Producer Adam, you can fix that one in post.
That one's Steven. If Steven's already. So Denny, we got this hyper. Or no, I did the edit joke wrong. So Denny, of course, Derek Carr's in his cryogenic chamber. And he does that 10 different times. So he says, so cold in it, cryogenic chamber. And, really need to end the show.
Only 4 more games after this. We're close.
Denny, real quick. Tommy DeVito, he's providing clicks, but not fantasy points. Is there a single giant worth starting not named Saquon Barkley?
Oh, yeah. Listen. Oh. I thought you were gonna say a single giant. You were like a single giant worth starting, and then like 10 seconds later, it was besides Saquon Barkley. Yeah, I mean, Saquon's in a great spot actually. Like teams are establishing it against the Saints when they get a lead. The vibes say that the Giants will win easily here. I say Saquon gets all.
The vibes say the Giants win easily, and yet the bookmakers have established the Saints as nearly touchdown.
They're wrong. I don't know what to say.
Darren Waller might return for the Giants.
Well, now that changes everything.
So Tommy D's getting himself a number 1, is what I'm saying. Tommy D. Yeah,
I mean, Jalen Wyatt may be worth something.
We also, of course, mentioned the Galaxy Brains, the Giants' futile attempts to find a quarterback who is worse than Daniel Jones. That no matter who they throw out there, they're instantly better than Daniel Jones. And can't be done. We're now on to our final game. NFL law says the Falcons and Panthers must play twice this season. They're in the same division. The Falcons are roughly field goal home favorites for a 33.5, quote, totaled showdown. Not a total. It's not a real total. This isn't NFL football. Anything at all to care about the Falcons, Kyle?
You know what there is to care about. Bijan's still not dominating the work, but he sees a ton of targets, ton of routes, and they run the ball enough that you don't have to see 80% of the carries. It's the Falcons, baby. 20% of the carries is like 20 carries. So Bijan, RB1, Drake London got home last week. I don't want to say that shouldn't be surprising, but he does see all of the wide receiver targets, all the wide receiver air yards. And Kyle Pitts, as of the past few weeks, is back to playing all the snaps and running like wide receiver routes as just a de facto big dude wide receiver. Play all those guys. If you play them on the same team, you are definitely not getting home with 3 of them like you did last week, I think. But, 1 or 2 of them should. Oh, Desmond Ridder has as many 300-yard games as Patrick Mahomes. I had that written down on the sheet.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Well, as many as Justin Herbert, too, which is as many as Jalen Hurts.
Please stop. Are there any more names?
I mean, I think maybe as many as Joe Burrow. I don't remember if that one's true, or one more, but Burrow's played a little less.
All because of the hip drop tackle.
The NFL had a good run. The NFL had a very, very good run. But it's over now. It's over now. And Denny, Panthers, I don't know.
This is just giving it to Chuba Hubbard and saying, please end the game, Chuba.
Yes, they want the offseason to be here very badly, where they 50, can give
50 rushes for Chuba over the past 2 games. Man. So we're gonna see. And he's not doing anything with it, by the way, nothing. But who cares? Just I think that you can play him as a flex. Jonathan Mingo, I have him in the regression files because someone is holding my dog hostage.
Wow.
So I had to do that. Ziggy. Yeah, poor Ziggy. But I did it, and I have Ziggy back. And Jonathan.
Speaking of Denny, how much should I feed your dog? I didn't ask that one.
No, it was actually Denny's mailman. Denny refuses to tip the mailman. He's one of the people that doesn't even know about that custom.
What is that? I mean, I've heard of it.
Yeah, you didn't tip your mailman. You don't tip your mail. It's pretty standard practice. You don't tip the mailman. They kidnap your dog.
How do you do that exactly? You
no reaction to my joke either. Oh, wow. No, my true friends are.
Sorry.
I think Denny's taking this seriously. He actually wants to know.
He actually is taking notes.
You have me thinking about like 4 things right now: my dog, Jonathan Mingo, the mailman, tipping workers.
People do tip the mailman. I think we've done it before. I'm not entirely sure how it works.
Do you just stand by the mailbox and wait? What do you do?
I think you put it in an envelope. You give them like a gift card to Outback.
Okay.
Maybe don't, Pat. You know what? That's more of an insult than a tip, if I'm being honest.
And I was trying to think of a less funny restaurant than Outback. But anyway, anyways, we digress. We must end the show. We must end the show. That's hopefully you enjoyed the Week 15 breakdown. Hopefully you enjoyed Denny's regression files, Kyle's 32 facts, Kyle's stardom cinema, Denny's funnel report, which is out on Fridays, my rankings, which will be updated going into Saturday. There are 3 games on Saturday. So for Kyle, for Denny, I'm Pat. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back later sometime.